Okay, Algebra 2 students, here's a first video for section 2.3. The essential question for this section is, how is the factored form helpful in solving quadratic equations? We're going to learn about the zero product property, and we're going to find zeros of quadratic functions. Moving ahead to the first example, which involves factoring. We're going to factor a quadratic expression. We're given the expression x squared plus 7x plus 12. We're going to factor that into two binomials. It's nice because the leading coefficient is 1. If the leading coefficient is 1, then all we really need to do is find two numbers that when you multiply them together you get 12. When you add them together you get 7. Positive in both cases. That's what they wrote here. M times n is 12 and m plus n is 7. So you could have 1 and 12, no, 2 and 6, no, 3 and 4. 3 and 4 works. 3 and 4, 3 times 4 is 12 and 3 plus 4 is 7. So they've broken down this quadratic into the two binomials being multiplied together, x plus 3 times x plus 4. And if you double distributed on that, or FOIL, whatever you want to call it, you'll end up with x squared plus 7x plus 12. So this is the correct factored form. It can get more difficult than that, especially if the first term is not 1. If the first term is not 1, if the leading coefficient is not 1, then multiply this leading coefficient times the constant term. In this case, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And then look for factors of negative 6 that when you add them together, you get negative 5. So with negative 6, it could be 1 and negative 6. Oh, there it is, 1 and negative 6, because 1 plus negative 6 is negative 5. Let's say that didn't work. Then I could have negative 1 and positive 6, which would have created positive 5, or 2 and 3. 2 times negative 3 would have given me negative 1 when I add them together. And so that the only one that works is negative 5 and 1. And what you want to do with the negative 5 and 1 is you want to split those up. I'm sorry, negative 6 and 1. Split those up so we break the negative 5x into two parts. Positive x and negative 6x, because when you add those together you get negative 5. And the reason for doing that is now we can group these two together and factor out an x times 2x plus 1. Okay? And then we can factor this. We can factor out a negative 3 and also have the 2x plus 1. Since they both have 2x plus 1, we can take the 2x plus 1 and make that one of the binomials. And then we have the outside here is x, and the outside here is a minus 3, so that would become the other binomial. So the factored form of the original expression is 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. All right, this takes a little practice. Here are two to try. Come on back when you're ready. I will try to write these out instead of trying to just describe them verbally. This one I like. When I see this, I know maybe it's a shortcut. Maybe it's not as obvious to you guys. But because there's no middle term, I got to find two numbers that when you multiply them together, you get, oh, that's because the leading coefficient is 1. Two numbers, when you multiply them together, you get negative 9. When you add them together, you get 0, because there was no x term. In other words, the two numbers need to be the same, just one positive, one negative, and that would be 3. So this factors into x minus 3 times x plus 3. That's what it factors to. All right. And the other one to try was this one. If you haven't had a chance, click pause and give it a shot. Come on back. This is the one that has the leading coefficient is not 1, so I need to take 3 times 2, which is 6. I need to find factors of 6 that when you add them together you get negative 7. So it could be 1 and 6, it could be 2 and 3, it could be negative 1, negative 6, negative 2, negative 3. Turns out to be negative 1 and negative 6, because when you add negative 1 and negative 6, you get negative 7. So I'm going to rewrite it, 3x squared. And for the x term, I'm either going to use the 6 or the 1. Since 3 over here is bigger than the 2, I'm going to bring the negative 6 over. So minus 6. And what was the other term? Negative 1, so negative x. And the rest of it's plus 2. So all I've done, I multiplied the 3 times the 2 to get 6. I found factors of 6 that when you add them you get negative 7. I wrote those two numbers down as the coefficients of x. And now I can group them. I'm going to group these two together. And it looks like I can factor out a 3 and an x. So I'm going to take a 3 and an x out. If I factor out a 3 and an x, I'm left behind with an x. And if I factor out a 3 and an x here, I get minus 2. And that should be, if I did it correct, that should be what factors out of this second part. And you might say, no, it's the opposite. That's okay, because it's the opposite. I know it's going to be minus 1. I'm going to multiply by negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. So that's what it factors to. And to write the final two binomials that get multiplied together, I already have the x minus 2 in parentheses. The other one is the numbers that are outside, or the expressions that are outside. 3x and minus 1. All right, so that's how to factor that. And I don't need to check the answers because I know those are correct. Your teacher could assign any of the following problems. 16 through 22, 15 through 22. Check with your teacher, see what they assigned to you. That's it for this video. Have a great day.